This podcast presents information based in part on theory and conjecture. The host purpose is to suggest some possible explanation, but not necessarily the only answer to paranormal phenomena. We have not yet begun to touch the surface into these supernatural occurrences. With that being said, welcome to the Paranormal Journal.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Paranormal Journal. I'm your host, John Curley. Welcome to another episode of the Paranormal Journal. Thank you guys for tuning in, listening, downloading the content, sharing it, like it, love it. I hope you guys are enjoying all this content because I'm enjoying talking about it. Tonight's episode is going to be on the crystal skulls. I've always been fascinated about this subject and these crystal skulls and the phenomena around these skulls. And tonight we're going to have Mr. Joshua Shapiro. He's going to be talking to us about his research into the crystal skulls. Now, Joshua has been involved with this since 1983 when he had a telepathic kind of interaction with one of these skulls and drew him into the path that he's on now with exploring these crystal skulls. He's written several books and has been a joint writer in another book. One book written in '89 called Mysteries of the Crystal Skulls Revealed. Another one back in 2004, Journeys of the Crystal Skull Explorers. And he has a lot to talk about with these crystal skulls, and we're going to have him on here tonight talking about them. So stay tuned. Don't go anywhere. I'm going to get him on the hook in a few seconds, and we are going to be talking with Mr. Joshua Shapiro, the Crystal Skull Explorer. So thank you, Joshua, for coming on the Paranormal Journal. I appreciate it. Talking about your many experiences with the crystal skulls. I don't know much about the crystal skulls, but from what I've read about they have a lot of paranormal phenomena behind them, and
most definitely.
So when did you get first started in the crystal skulls?
Well, my first contact really was in 1983. And what happened was I was visiting a metaphysical bookstore in San Jose, California. And I was going to see my friend because I had copies of this book I had written called Journeys of an Aquarian Age Networker, which came out in '82. And while I was visiting with her, she pulled out these pictures of an amethyst crystal skull, which I had never seen before or heard of. And the thing that was very unusual about it is I had a very powerful response to the picture. It was like when I'm looking at it, I started to feel like there was this inner earthquake going on inside of me. My body was vibrating. And then the weird thing is that maybe 10 minutes later, 15 minutes later, there was an actual earthquake in California because this bookstore was in San Jose, California, Coalinga, California, which I think is like about 100 miles south of San Jose. They had a major earthquake. And the picture was vibrating on the table when the earthquake happened. And then another thing I remember from this experience, and it was like, you know, when you're on your own spiritual path or you're involved with the paranormal, there's always going to be very special moments where you're going to have a key experience and it changes your life forever. So I believe this was one of mine. I started hearing the skull talk to me through the picture. And what I remember, I can't remember the exact words, but I remember the essence of what was said to me was something like, we are returning now to help humanity to create world peace. So Joshua, now that you know, what are you going to do about it? So it was almost like this crystal skull knew my soul, knew that on some level I was going to get involved with crystal skulls, and I was going to make it like a major commitment in my life to, you know, investigating them and sharing the most important information that came across my path or what I learned about them. And so I was granted a copy of this a picture of this crystal skull, and I start taking it and sharing it with other people. And then eventually I got invited back to San Jose, California. And I found out that this skull was stored in a vault in a local art gallery, that the people who were in possession of it was a group of Hispanic businessmen. And supposedly there was this young person in town who was interested to see the skull, and they were interested to try to sell it. So what I learned is later on, what happened is a Mayan priest had brought this crystal skull to them from Mexico, and they gave him a loan. And if he repaid the loan, they would have given him the skull back, but he never did. So by the time I'm seeing it, I think they had started to take possession of it. And so, unfortunately, only one of the businessmen really understood the importance of this crystal skull. For the rest of them, it was just money. Eventually, I think in 1999, they eventually sold the skull. So like 16 years later, they didn't sell it that day. But because this person came in to the art gallery, I was able to see the skull and touch it. And it just, this is what happens to me with certain crystal skulls. They integrate into my vibrational frequency. And it's like if I think about them, I can actually feel them, even though they're not here physically. I can feel their essence around me. And so this was the first one that did that to me. And I would feel it over my right shoulder. That's where it integrated with me. So whenever I think about this amethyst skull, I feel it over my right shoulder. So that's basically how I got started. And then I would share pictures of this with people when I would do my public presentations. And then eventually I met the two people I would write my first book with, or our first book actually, Mr. Nasarino and Miss Bowen. I met them in 85. And then in 88, we came out with the Crystal Skull book. And in 89, we came out with a professional version where, we went to a printer and had the printer pay for it. So that's kind of how it started for me. And it hasn't stopped since then. I can't say every day, but let's say every month, every few months, there's always some new insight or new skull or some new development that comes up. So it's like, for me as an Aries, this is a perfect subject to study because it's constantly changing. It's in flux. There are new things happening. There are new insights. There might be a new skull that comes to my wife, Katrina, and I that we're going to work with, and becomes part of our collection. So we just never know what's going to happen with that. But I most definitely never forgot the message that the amethyst skull told me, which is they're returning to help humanity to create world peace. So it must mean, and I believe this now because between 1983 and 2022, that's 39 years. I've met many skulls since that time. I've had other skulls telepathically talk to me, and I've watched how they have affected people. And they are a great catalyst for awakening the divinity or our spiritual aspect within us. And I'm not the only one that feels that. I've talked to many people now, other people who have their own crystal skulls or other teachers who travel like I do and share about them. And many people feel that this is a key tool that probably was gifted to humanity perhaps thousands of years ago, and now they're returning to come back. And it makes sense because where we are right now here at the end of June of 2022, we still have a lot of great challenges going on in our world, and we need all the help we can get. And I believe that these are sacred tools that were gifted to humanity to help us so that one day we can have total peace and harmony. So that's kind of my beginning, how I got involved in all this, John.
That's quite interesting. I know I've read a few things on the crystal skulls, and I read that Hewlett Packard had done tests to see how these things were constructed, and they haven't been able to figure it out since. They can't find any tool marks on them and things like that. And they're made of what, like quartz and stuff like that, right?
Well, the first crystal skulls that came out publicly were made out of quartz. However, now that, and this is back in the 1800s. So now that we're here in the 21st century, there are crystal skulls that are made out of almost every gemstone that you can imagine.
Wow.
Whether they're being created by modern carvers or they were created by ancient civilizations in the past. So the definition of the crystal skull now has to include any type of gemstone that is in the shape of a skull, whether it's human or alien or animal or stylized or very advanced or primitive. So when the first one came out, really the Mitchell Hedges skull, which is what Hewlett Packard had access to for a period of time, because Anna Mitchell Hedges, who was the guardian of the skull, had gave it to Mr. Frank Dorland, who lived in California, and he made the arrangement to bring it to Hewlett Packard. And this was in the 1970s. They were going, we're not sure we could create such a crystal skull. Now, the key to understand, because there are modern carvers now who have come really close to duplicating the Mitchell Hedges skull now, but what they're doing is they're using diamond tip tools. A diamond is a very hard substance, and so is quartz crystal, but diamond is harder than quartz. And I've actually met carvers who showed me that when they use these diamond tip tools with quartz, it cuts through it like butter. Wow. So it allows them, if they're very talented carvers, that they can pretty much create whatever shape or form that they want to do. However, when the Mitchell Hedges was brought to Hewlett Packard, I'm not sure if it's the 70s or the early 80s, they were just developing diamond tip tools. So in other words, this skull came from hundreds or thousands of years. Somebody else made it, and we're just developing the tools when Hewlett Packard has the skull that could do something like this. So this is, part of the mystery of it. And to me, it is a sign that there have been very advanced civilizations on the earth, probably more advanced than us right now. And they made these kind of very sophisticated carved tools, and they may not have been using, even diamond tip tools. It could have been lasers. It could have been the power of the mind. We don't know. So this was why Hewlett Packard said that, because at this period of time, diamond tip tools were just coming out and they hadn't really even investigated or used them. So they weren't sure whoever made the Mitchell Hedges skull, how they did it. When we didn't have the technology at that time to do that. So that's kind of key. But for me, what I think is the most telling sign with the skulls is the vibrational frequency of energies that are around them, especially ones which we call ancient or very old, which means they were made more than 2,000 years ago. Some of these very old skulls, they just have an extremely powerful energy around them that affects people in very powerful ways. I mean, supposedly, like with the Mitchell Hedges skull, Anna Mitchell Hedges, when she was alive, had reports of people who were visiting with her to see the skull who had some kind of serious illness. And they were reporting back, hey, I went to the doctor and it's totally gone. Like the frequency of energy that skull had is a healing skull. Or the amethyst skull. Remember, I told you there was this gentleman, Hispanic gentleman, his name was Al Ramirez, and he's the one who actually gave to the amethyst skull its name, Ami, which means friend, which came when he granted us permission to do some research with that skull. We worked with the Meridian stress test system, which is a system that doctors in Europe use and possibly here in the United States, where they use electrodes to touch the meridians on the body, and the body will not lie what's going on with it. And they can read and understand what challenges a person has. And then they have a whole computer system connected to it, which will tell what remedies, what natural substances to use to help the person who has that condition. So we actually used this device with AMI, where we were testing people, and we saw how AMI was affecting people energetically. And Al Ramirez, who was one of the owners, he was the only one who understood this skull. He actually had a health challenge that happened to him while he was one of the owners of the skull, where he had a blood vessel in his brain that wasn't growing properly. And the doctors told him, look, if you were a younger person, we have a procedure that could correct this, and there wouldn't be, such a negative effect on you. But being, I don't know, he was 60 or 70 when he was diagnosed, being that you're older, we can't guarantee that if we do surgery, this is going to help you. It might make you like a vegetable. So he agreed to the surgery, and that's what happened. He could barely think, he couldn't move, but somehow he communicated to his family to have him on the ground and put the crystal skull, the back of the crystal skull to the back of his head. And all he did was, when that happened, he thought, I'm going to be perfectly well, I'm going to be healed. And he got healed, and the medical doctors had no explanation for how that could happen. So definitely one of the key aspects of the crystal skulls is it can work as a healing tool. It can amplify your creative gifts. It can amplify your spiritual gifts. This is what I think has happened to me. I think my gift of telepathy has been enhanced. My gift of feeling of energy and intuition has been enhanced because I've been around these crystal skulls a lot. And, all the different types of skulls, from the new ones being made to the very, very old ones. And, so it's just very interesting what happens with the skull. So I probably went way out on your question, John, but
No, not at all. It's actually great. Do you think
yes.
that these skulls are originated from like another planet?
Well, I definitely think there is an extraterrestrial connection with them. And here's some of the things that have come up that lead me to that feeling. So there is a crystal skull I have called Portal de Luz, which is Portuguese or Spanish for Portal of the Light. And I think that this name is absolutely perfect. And this skull was made by a very talented Brazilian carver. I met him, and he's probably made, I don't know, hundreds or over 1,000 skulls. He's very talented. But what happened is this skull was gifted to me at a Crystal Skull Conference in Sedona, Arizona in 1999. And I was invited to be a speaker. And the people who had the booth next to mine, they were selling these crystal skulls that had been carved in Brazil by this particular carver. And my ex-wife, who was Brazilian at that time, she felt to buy the skull for me. And from the very first night, I started having a telepathic communication with him. He was in the hotel room, he was on the table next to my head on the bed. And I don't know if he was activated by being around the other skulls. There were some older skulls there. There was one called Wind Song, which definitely has a galactic being that works through it. That's why the skull has this name. My friend Floyd Petrie found it at a video store. He was actually called to that video store by the skull to come find it. And he had received through a medium that there was a galactic being whose presence came to the earth, went into this huge block of crystal that was shaped into a skull. And the closest we can come to the name of the being is the Song of the Wind, or Wind Song. So I don't know if Portal de Luz got energized by this galactic being because he is around Wind Song and a bunch of other skulls. But I noticed, even though he was a new skull, and with the name Portal of Light, is reflecting the idea of having a consciousness from other dimensions, which we could call extraterrestrial or other worlds, that started to work through him and speak through him. And, I've always felt that Portal de Luz carries cosmic energies, or I'm kind of like a cosmic shaman because, I've had a strong connection with, I don't know how to phrase this. I have galactic beings that talk to me telepathically. Like, for example, I think I told you we're setting up this new center called the Center for the Advancement of Humanity. This is something that came up in 2018. And I feel like our galactic brothers and sisters came after me and said, Joshua, you need to start working on creating it in the Atlanta area where you live this year. You need to start talking to people and everything. So we have a whole group of people in various countries supporting it. But there seems to be, every time I talk about it with other people, I always feel on my right side like there's a galactic being, I think it's an Arcturian, who is assisting me with this and helping us to build the center. And the crystal skulls are going to be very connected to the center. I'm sure we're going to do a lot of public events and publish books and do documentaries and all kinds of things in the center. Because I'm going to be giving all my information I've collected over the years to the center. And hopefully we'll have all these people helping me so I don't have to do everything. Because, like when I go to write my books, I'm doing everything except for the artwork. I find a person who creates the artwork for me. But as far as, setting the book up on the computer and doing it the way our books now are published, self-published through Amazon, has a publishing part there, which I forget what they call it. It's a kind of a funny word. So I've had experiences connected with various galactic beings, and it comes up with the crystal skulls too. So one of our theories is that perhaps the crystal skulls were initially gifts from the gods. Okay, like the Mesoamerican people, like the Mayan and the Aztec, they believe in contact with the gods. Mayans talk about the Pleiadian, I think, the gods from the Pleiades. And so it's possible that maybe some of these indigenous people who have this connection with crystal skulls, because we find some of the crystal skulls in their ruins. In Mayan ruins, there have been crystal skulls found, that they were gifts from the gods. And this would go along with the message I talked about of me, that we're coming back to help humanity, that this was their original purpose, and they were gifted to humanity to help us. And now that we're going through all these challenges, we need their assistance again. And the extraterrestrials gifted us the skulls as a sacred tool to help us in our spiritual evolution and growth. Because this is the sensing I have from all my experiences. Another thing that has come up in the Mitchell Hedges skull, when my co-authors Nasarino and Bowen were doing research with the Mitchell Hedges skull, they were using color and sound, exposing the skull to that, and holographic images would start showing up in the skull. And it would show galactic beings. It would show Mayan cities with flying saucers around it. So, and actually there was another skull that I met, which is called E.T. by the Guardian, Yoki Van Deeten, which this is one of the very old ones I believe we know about, where I had the opportunity to meet the skull with the Guardian. Because the first time she saw the skull, I was there. Because I happened to know the owner of this crystal store in the Los Angeles area, and he found me at a conference, and he said I had to go to his store, and he wanted me there because he wanted to have somebody involved with crystal skulls when he first met Yoka. And so I met Yoka at his store, and then he invited us to his house. and he had in his house in a box, because a family found this skull on their property in Guatemala or Honduras. Can't remember which one. I think it was Guatemala. And they desperately needed help and money, and they sold the skull to him, and Yoka made an arrangement with him to get it. So when he brought it out in the box for the first time for her to see it, I saw it. And this skull definitely looked extraterrestrial. Okay, Mitchell Hedges looks like our bone skull, but the one, and that's probably why she called it ET, is it looks extraterrestrial. He has a pointed jaw and a pointed head, and it's not totally like a human skull. And this one was made out of smoky quartz. Mitchell Hedges is clear quartz. Mitchell Hedges, just to show the difference, is two pieces. It has a lower separate jaw from the top part, but ET is one solid piece that it was made. And ET was there with Yoka at this conference where I got Portal de Luz. And ET was part of a Mayan sunrise ceremony, as Portal de Luz was. And Portal de Luz was next to ET. So again, another possibility of how Portal de Luz started to become receptive to having galactic beings work through it. So what I see with the crystal skulls and the possible relationship with the galactic beings, especially if it's made from quartz, quartz is a transmitter and receiver of various frequencies of energy. I mean, like in all our electronics, we're using quartz crystal, which amplifies an electrical current. So what I think happens is these galactic beings or dimensional beings who are interested in humanity and want to help us, that through this special ability of quartz crystal, they can work through it, and they can actually emanate like it has a personality through the skull. Because this is the only way I can explain when I'm speaking to Portal de Luz. Who am I talking to? I'm talking to some living consciousness. It knows me very well. It knows my strengths. It knows my weaknesses. We work together, and I feel like Portal de Luz is like, a being, a person. I relate to him like I'm speaking to you, John. It's a person. But I feel with Portal de Luz that whoever these beings are that are working through, they're geared toward being more galactic. So, some of us who are involved in researching crystal skulls, we think that there is this UFO ET connection with the skulls, that they possibly, the very old ones, were gifts from the gods, and they were a tool given to humanity to help us. So can we prove any of this? No, but there are other people who've had crystal skull experiences or are guardians of crystal skulls like we are, who feel the same way. They feel there is this galactic connection with the skulls.
Do you think
So
that if you took one of these skulls to maybe like a haunted location, that it would kind of like increase paranormal phenomena or something like that?
Well, it definitely does increase paranormal phenomena, because in a way, if it is what I call an activated or an awakened crystal skull, it's literally like an energy vortex or portal. Okay. So it is definitely going to amplify if there already is paranormal activity around it. Now, taking it to a haunted house, we have a different situation going on, because in most cases, the haunted house is with a ghost or souls, lost souls, who cannot disconnect from their earthly lifetime. Like when they passed away, they were unwilling to go to the higher vibrational frequencies we go, whether you call it heaven or paradise or whatever. And they kind of got stuck, or a portion of their energy got stuck. So I think what would happen in the case of a haunted house is, if it's a crystal skull that's emanating, very powerful, positive, healing energy, it's going to probably help to release those spirits so they can move and go on. And there's also a possibility too, because there is this activity already, there already is some kind of dimensional vortex there, but whether it's positive or negative, I don't know. So maybe the skull might close it. Now, there was one time that your question reminds me when I worked with, God, my memory's so bad when you get to be older, can't remember it. Let me think about this. Yeah, it's on the tip of my tongue. There was a group in England, Skull England, that conducted ceremonies where they were sitting in basically like a seance on a wooden table with a glass jar behind it. And there's books written, it's called The Skull Experiment. And unfortunately, I can't remember the name of the man who led it. They moved from England to Spain, but I met him at a conference that I spoke at in England, and made a very strong connection with him. And then he invited me and my another ex-wife I had at the time to come visit him in England. And what they did is they would do the ceremony in the basement of a very old house. It was that location, that cellar, seemed to is where, if you know what I mean by ley lines, where ley lines on the land there were crossing. And this is where they would do it. And what they were able to achieve, which I don't know if any other groups did this, is they actually had the spirits fully manifest in the room, in the physical. So in other words, first they had a contact, they used some of their members were spiritual mediums, so the spirit would speak through, but it was like they were working with scientists from spirit, and they were trying to work together to create where there would be a direct communication. So it would absolutely prove there is life after death, because the spirits eventually, because they kept doing these sessions over and over, they built up the energy in this room. And there eventually came a point where the spirits were able to fully manifest in the physical, and they could touch the people and they could speak to them and so on. Now, the reason I'm bringing this up is because Portal de Luz went to this location. Now, for some reason, this contact with spirit and these experiments, it ended in the middle part of the 1990s. So by the time I went there, which I think was like 2000 or 2001, this strong energy they had in the room had basically been shut down. But I brought Portal de Luz into this space. And the idea was, could a crystal skull help to regenerate the vortex that they had created so they could have the communication again? And unfortunately, that did not happen when we had the skulls there. However, I do know that Portal de Luz absorbed some frequencies of energy from that. And I noticed that after I took him out of that cellar, he had changed inwardly, physically. So this was another, kind of linked to the paranormal. So the crystal skulls can make a difference. Another experiment I'm thinking about to change the energy is Portal de Luz told me when I was in England, and he calls me Dad. He said, Dad, I want you to go take me to the crop circles. And of course, at this time, which was in the early 2000s, they were having crop circles in the southern part of England, appearing everywhere. So we started to do that. I took him to the crop circles. And then eventually I was able to work with some crop circle researchers who could measure the energy in the crop circle. And so what we were curious about is if a crystal skull could go into a crop circle and change the frequency of energy. And I'm trying to remember the first time. Oh yeah, so what happened is, what we did is we took Portal de Luz and I to the center of the crop circle, and the researcher had a device where he could measure the electromagnetic energy. And when he measured the energy at the center of this crop circle, which looked like, I think it was a yin yang pattern, the vibrational frequency was 0. In other words, on its dial, it was always 0. It didn't measure anything. But then Portal de Luz, when we were looking at him after he was near the center, we started to see, like, inside of him. I saw this, my ex-wife saw this, and the researchers saw this. And Portal de Luz, it looked like he was mirroring an energy that was vibrating very fiercely, going up and down very quickly. So it was like neutralizing itself. And so this, to me, explained why the measurement was 0 on the device the researcher was using. So then we said, okay, so Portal de Luz wants me to meditate to his favorite song, which happens to be Pachelbel's Canon in D. It's a very famous song, very popular. It's at weddings. And, it's used for small children to help them go to sleep because it's a very harmonious piece. So I start meditating with him. And then after I finished the meditation, we put Portal de Luz back into the center, and then we measured the energy, and then it was off the scale. So somehow working and activating him and working with music, this changed the crop circle. And the last experience I'm going to tell you about, again, to show the frequencies of energy around the skull, is I met some people from Belgium when I was living in Holland, because I had a Dutch wife at that time. And they invited me to come to meet their group and do some tests on Portal de Luz, because they had a device they were working with, which is called a Lecuyer antenna. And it's named after a man named Lecuyer. And what this is, it's like a dowsing rod, but it has numbers on the side. Like, you know, when you work with the dowsing rod, you're looking for water, the rods, you know, come apart by themselves. Well, this device worked the same way. When they set the measurement to a certain setting and it measured that frequency of energy, then the device would just automatically flip by itself. Okay, it was influenced by a specific frequency. So we took it to the group, and they were using the Lecuyer antenna, like a dowsing rod, moving it towards Portal de Luz, and they measured certain frequencies on it that was coming from the skull. And the teacher was there, and the teacher thought that nothing was going to happen when we did this test. But all of a sudden, the skull's flipping, and the vibrational frequencies that Portal de Luz was emanating was the five human senses. They did this test 3 times, and every time he would show that he was vibrating the 5 human senses. So this is just an example related to, you know, can we measure the energy? Is it of a paranormal? And so these things that are happening around Portal de Luz, which is just a modern skull made by a modern carver, is happening. So you can imagine with some of the very old ones that have been with civilizations, very old, very advanced, what those kind of crystal skulls could do.
Yeah, I mean that's pretty amazing. I've always wondered, you know, if I know there's hundreds of skulls, you know, if they were all combined into one room, what kind of phenomena that would produce? That would probably be amazing.
Oh, John, we've actually done this.
Really?
Yes. At the Dutch conference that I worked on with friends in Holland, 2006, I believe, before the conference started, we had a room that probably had about 100 skulls, which was a combination of the skulls brought by the various speakers and people that were working on the conference, volunteers. And yeah, the energy was very powerful, but we noticed one thing. There was a jade jade skulls that were there. And I met the man who had these jade skulls, and then he passed them on to this woman who was a crystal skull teacher and guardian in Scotland. And she was the one who brought them and her friend. And there was, when you put these jade skulls, and they purportedly were taken from some civilization in Asia by Genghis Khan. Genghis Khan would conquer all these people, and he would take all their treasures. So this is the story the man told me, who was actually an Oriental man. And I'm not sure where his family came from, but that's what he told me. And I slept with these jade skulls, and the first night I could not sleep. It was very intense. And I talked to them, and then the second night I was able to sleep okay. But they seem to have a totally different type of frequency of energy than, let's say, the quartz skulls or the other type of gemstone skull. So they weren't compatible. So this was kind of interfering a little bit in the harmony of the crystal skulls in the room. But I know when we did Crystal Skull World Day, which I think was like 2014 or 2015, I think it was in the fall, like September 13th or something like that. There was a group in Canada that had over 100 people, and they had 1,000 crystal skulls in the same room together.
Wow.
Almost unbelievable. So yes, I think if you bring crystal skulls that are activated in a proper way together, it's going to be amazing energy. And we were, doing world peace meditations with the skulls, although of course, most of the time we were not meeting directly in groups, it was individuals. But on Crystal Skull World Day, we did set up, to have meetings with different groups around the world. So I think we were in the Seattle area when we were doing that. And we probably had about 50 to 100 skulls that were coming together when we did the groups and so on. So they were very powerful. So this is one of the things that we have been inspired. And I've also heard too, that like by Mayan pyramids and ruins in Mexico and Central America, since they have a connection with crystal skulls, they've done sacred ceremonies in those places. And sometimes they're kind of like guided to do these ceremonies to reactivate the sacred energies that were connected with the pyramids and those sacred sites. So yes, if you bring a bunch of skulls together, it can create a very powerful energy that can be used to help heal our planet and heal the people who are participating.
So this got me interested about this Center for Humanity you were talking about. Is that going to be an online thing, or is there actually going to be an actual center where people can go and be a part of this community?
For right now, we can only be online because we haven't received, I call it the resources, which would include the funding to do it. But my intention is, and my vision, and I keep seeing this in my mind's eye whenever I think about it, is that eventually we're going to buy a building here in the Atlanta area, and this will become the main physical center. And I've already have extended family, like in Canada and England. I just got a new group I made an agreement with in Italy, Australia, New Zealand, France, etc., Virgin Islands. We will have sister centers where the sister center will decide which of the various books we publish or documentaries or whatever products or services we come up with they want to sponsor. And then they will be like a meeting point for people, to access our website that we'll have, or our online information, etc. So this is my vision. Now, this is something that is being talked about a lot right now, especially on Telegram, of a redistribution of wealth on the planet. And this has to do with and I don't know if you want to bring this up or not, but it's the only way I can explain this, is that for many years now, we have been under the rule of an elite or globalist, very wealthy people, and they have not been using that wealth for the benefit of humanity. I think we can see that very much so right now, especially what's going on with COVID and the pandemic and the vaccines. There's a lot of people who do not believe what we're hearing and what we're being told about this. And so it's kind of like a prophecy, but also I believe that we're in the process of a totally new financial system coming in a redistribution of wealth. In other words, money that has been stolen and taken from the average person is going to be returned. But a lot of these funds will be given to humanitarian or spiritual projects. So I'm connected to that process. I don't know when it's going to start happening. I think a sign of this is that Russia has publicly declared that their currency, the ruble, is now going to be backed by gold. Okay, our dollar used to be backed by gold, but I think when Nixon was president, they stopped that. And this is what they're talking about in the future, that there will be new currencies all backed by precious metals all over the world, and the value of those currencies will be uh, uh, similar. In other words, it won't be like it is now, where $1 is equal to hundreds of thousands of the currency of, let's say, a poorer country. And so this is where I believe ultimately the funding will be coming from for our center. As I said, the galactic beings I have around me are the ones who told me I need to start talking about this center. And I just see us being involved in all kinds of paranormal projects, getting out the best information in every form of media possible. And when the resources come to start building the center here in Atlanta, I'm going to be interviewing people and I'm going to ask them one question. If they don't know the answer to this question, I will not be able to bring them on board. And that is, they have to know what makes their heart sing. What do they love to do more than anything else in the world? Because what I see is when a person comes into the Center for the Advancement of Humanity, when we have this building and everybody there is doing what they love, there's going to be such an amazing energy there. People will come in and they won't want to leave. They'll be totally treated with respect and love by the people working at the center. And this will be the way all of our centers will be all over the world. So I'm very excited about this project. I know it sounds, like it's just a dream or fantasy, but I think that we're very close to having the resources come that we will be able to start building these centers. So for right now, what we're doing is we're building a Rumble video channel, and we already have two people that I've interviewed who are members of our center, who are spiritual mediums, one channeled in Arcturian and the other one channeled a Pleiadian. So I did a talk with them, and we have on this video channel their conversation. I think I sent you the link for that, John. I don't know if you had a chance yet to take a look at that. I also have.
I did check it out.
Okay. I also have on there my interview of my research into Tartaria, which is a whole other subject of an advanced civilization that existed here on the earth that I believe was only 200 years ago, which most people will find unbelievable and hard to digest. But I think we have proof of that. So we have the interview I did with my friend Nancy on her show, similar to like the shows you're doing on there. And I'm hoping to create a Crystal Skull panel as another video that we'll have on the channel, where I'm going to invite some other people besides myself who are knowledgeable about crystal skulls, or teachers or authors or guardians, and just ask a couple of questions and have everybody give what's their answer, what do they think, how do they perceive that. So our center is going to be very connected with the crystal skulls. I think we'll be setting up major events, and I've been told, and I don't know how this will happen, but some of these very ancient skulls will eventually find their way there and will be a part of the program and the events that we'll be doing, so people will have a chance to experience them themselves. So this would be one thing I would recommend for you to consider, which we've already talked about, is to eventually get your own crystal skull and start to have your own experiences, because it's hard to understand perhaps some of the experiences I'm talking about till you've actually been with one. And then you can go, oh yeah, now I understand what Joshua's talking about. I feel this energy, or the skull is affecting my dreams, or, like I said, some people have had some kind of illness or damage to their body that got cured as a result of being depressed. So that's what the center will be about. I think it's, crystal skulls, communication with galactics, the paranormal, and also too, I'm hoping we will have a department that will help with health, holistic healing and spiritual healing. And again, on Telegram, and I've seen pictures of this, and supposedly there are a few centers now that have this very advanced device called a med bed. I hope that we will have one of those med beds in the center so people can come in for free. And this technology is electromagnetic in nature, and it totally can heal the person, because every challenge that we have is based on an imbalance of the electromagnetic energies in our body. And I think in Atlantis, they did that. They would put you in a room and they would, do an analysis of your situation, see what is the vibrational frequency, and they would have color and sound that would balance that out, and you would walk out perfectly healed. So I'm assuming there's a similar technology with these beds, and they say that the Galactics gifted these beds to us, that it's from them. So I'm hopeful our center will have one, or we will be connected to a local center here in the Atlanta area that has them that we can send people. So, basically what it boils down to, John, is the center will only be limited by our imagination. And I'm sure, even though I channeled a lot of different departments and projects that could be connected to the center, as we start having more and more people join us, they will bring in their dreams and their visions, and we'll try to work on those projects as well. Or we'll work with other centers or other organizations where we have something in common, that we want to work on. We have different pieces of it. So we'll create an alliance and work with them on special projects. So that's kind of what I see for the center. Thank you for asking about that.
It sounds amazing. You know, the whole crystal skull thing is very interesting because we really don't know lots about it, but from what you're saying, this center could really develop a lot of things with the crystal skulls and helping people and healing people and giving people like a spiritual awakening, which I think a lot of
Okay.
people need that nowadays because the way the world's headed, it's not looking too good right now. But
Well, at the moment it isn't, but I need to share a message with your listeners. This is very important for them to understand. I think that the telepathic communication I have with loving galactics, as I call them, brothers and sisters, and also through some experiences, which would take me too long to explain, spiritual experiences I've had, I have been shown, and I know within my being, with absolute certainty, that we are headed within about the next 15 to say 18 years, that total peace is coming to this planet. I think that what's happening in the Ukraine is a sign of a war on consciousness that's been going on since JFK was president, which would be in the 60s. That the major media is trying to make Putin out to be a villain. But think about it this way, and I'm just using this as an example. Russia is so powerful, and the Ukraine is just a little tiny country. When the United States, I forget if it was Iraq or Iran, we went in there. Remember when George Bush Sr. was president? I remember this.
yeah,
And in a
that was
few days,
Iraq. Yeah,
Iraq. And in how many days? 3 or 4 days, it was over.
yeah.
Okay, but here we are. They went in at the end of February, I believe, or early March, and here we are at almost end of June, like 4 months later, and it's still going on. Okay, it doesn't make any sense. Okay, the Ukraine does not have the military might to stop the Russians. If they wanted to go in there and conquer them, they could have done the same thing that the U.S. did with Iraq, and yet they did not do so. Okay, so there's something wrong about this. Now on Telegram, what they're saying is, and Putin has publicly said this, but the major media here in the United States will not cover this, but he has said it publicly, is that when the Second World War ended, the Nazis went into Ukraine. They literally took over the country, and then the US has backed these labs, like the lab in Wuhan where supposedly COVID started. There's At first I heard there were 8 labs. Now it's like over 40. The United States sponsors these labs to create viruses and flus and terrible substances to infect the world. And Putin said he went in there to take that out. Okay, that it was a threat to the entire world. So when I go into my intuition, this is the only thing that makes sense to me. And I've also heard on Telegram from people who live in the Ukraine, like from the military or civilians, who said that when the Russians came and captured them, they did not treat them badly. They treated their wounds, they gave them food, they were kind to them. And also, there's two parts of the Ukraine on the eastern side, which Russia first acknowledged their independence, and I'm not sure what they're called, but they're like 2 sections. And why did the people in those areas rebel against the Ukrainian government? They probably were rebelling because conditions there were very bad, and the major media was not discussing this. Biden was very involved with Ukraine. His son was very involved with Ukraine. There was a lot of not things going on. So I think this war in the Ukraine is actually a sign that this war on consciousness that's going on behind the scenes, it's starting to come forward. And what I have been told by the Galactics, and again, I can't prove it, but that through what happened with the pandemic and COVID, more than 50% of the people on the planet now are awakened, and they're not trusting what the government and the media says, and the medical profession too. They're not trusting it. Okay, there's something wrong. They're starting to feel that it isn't being told. And I believe that because of this shift in consciousness, this awakening of many people on our planet, there is a universal law by creator which says if the majority of people on a world do not support the people that are in power and are against it and do not give their power away, divine intervention will come. And I think that's what's been going on through our brothers and sisters, the Galactics. They've been working with, they are calling them on Telegram, the White Hats or the Alliance or whatever you want to call the people working for the freedom of our world. They're supporting them. And I think that we're already past the point now where the light has already won. And the best way to explain this is Carrie Cassidy, who talks to all these whistleblowers on her interviews, and she's very well known. She had a guy named Bill Wood come talk about Project Looking Glass. Project Looking Glass was some technology they got from Stargates, which apparently came from the Galactics again. And what this device could do is you would think about something you wanted to create or some future you wanted to do, and it would show you how such a future could happen. But there was another group who claims they worked with it that said that what this device really was doing was showing you parallel Earths, because there's a philosophy that anything that we can imagine, like happening on our Earth, exists in a parallel Earth. If it's not happening here, then those things are happening in a parallel Earth. So this device was mirroring like conditions in parallel Earth. But what happened, according to Mr. Wood, is in 2012, Project Looking Glass would only show one future for the Earth, no matter what situation or condition you presented it to it. And it was what he called a great awakening of humanity, of this time of peace that's coming that I talk about. So what I say to your listeners is if you stop paying attention to what the major media is telling you, what the governments are telling you, and you go with your own gut feeling or intuition, and maybe do this meditation for 5 or 10 minutes every day, where you give yourself permission to visualize in your mind, what would our world look like if we had total peace and harmony? And you do that like every day. I guarantee you there's going to be a day in the future where you're going to wake up, and that's how the world's going to be. So all I can say is I just know inside myself, listening to my soul, listening to my feeling, my intuition, the telepathic messages that I'm receiving. We are on the path of total paradise and peace and harmony for the earth. I do not know exactly how we're going to get there. I do not know what are going to be major events that are going to take place, which will confirm for everyone that this definitely is going on. Some people say there'll be some kind of emergency broadcast, that they have a technology that can take over all the communication system we have, and they can start broadcasting the truth of what's really going on our planet. I think this may be a part of it. Also, when I interviewed Heltor, who's the Pleiadian, through Reverend Dr. Phil, which is one of the videos that I mentioned that we have for the center, it was talking about that it could also be the Pleiadian ship showing up in the sky. And they have the ability to send down to us an energy of love and peace, so people will not be afraid of this. Okay, so there's many different possibilities that could happen that will open this door. But I think we are very, very close, that before the end of this year, I'm almost absolutely convinced of it, because I see our center happening. Our center having a physical center is linked to this great awakening. When this starts to happen, that's when our center will start to manifest in the physical. It's tied together. And this is probably the reason why our galactic brothers and sisters were saying, hey, Joshua, you got to get started. You need to start creating the energy and planting it in the earth, setting it up already. So when those resources come, you already have things set up. So you know right away where all the resources need to go. So I think this is the reason why I've been guided to do it. Being in Aries, it's not crazy for me to go ahead and start working on something where I don't have all the resources necessary to create it, other than the vision of it in my mind's eye and the belief that it's important and that it will help a lot of people. So this is something I want to say to your listeners about, really there's a lot of positive things happening behind the scenes that are going on. And I think the rubles being backed by gold is a good sign. The war in the Ukraine, I saw supposedly one of the elites posted something somewhere and said, if we lose the Ukraine, it's over. We're done. So it means all the old financial system, the stealing of money, the vaccines, all these challenges that we have and craziness that goes on, it's over. It's done. I think we're very close. We're speaking, what's today, June 23rd, John?
Yeah.
So I think, it could be next month. I don't know. The main challenge people have who believe in this is they keep waiting, because it keeps going on. Like for many people they know, for example, here in the US, that Trump didn't lose the election. I mean, I listened to meetings where witnesses came in and talked about the madness that was going on to put in extra votes and get rid of votes for Trump and so on. It's like they have all the evidence, but Trump went ahead and let Biden become president because he needed people to see what was going to happen when the Democrats took over. And there's nothing good that's happened since Biden has been president.
No,
I haven't
nothing.
seen anything. Right. I haven't seen anything good he's done. Our gas prices are high. We're running out of food. We got all these immigrants coming in from the South. He's sending a lot of money to the Ukraine that could be used to help poor people here in the United States.
Yes.
So there's absolutely nothing good. But I think that Trump and the people working with him, the White Hats, the Alliance, they knew people wouldn't believe the election could have been stolen unless they had proof, of what's happening. Now I think they have this proof. Now they're beginning to wake up. So I think we're really close here at the edge of some major breakthroughs coming. And just people, even though maybe not so much here in the United States, but I know in other countries they're having very difficult time, with mandates and masks still and vaccines and so on. We just have to stay positive. And the key is if something doesn't feel right or is immoral, you must say no. I will not do this. I will not participate. I will not give it my energy. I will not give my power away.
Exactly.
And I think this is, what's happening for a lot of people. They're starting to wake up and realize that we, the people, are the ones who are in charge of this world. It's not these 13 families, they say, which comprise the globalists, who are deciding things for us and trying to convince us of scenarios, which are not true. So I think Tartaria is an example that we haven't been taught the true history of the earth. But that would require, a whole other show, or your listeners need to come to our Rumble channel, and they can watch my conversation with my friend Nancy on Tartaria.
Yeah,
So,
definitely. Definitely get out your information on here about Rumble, the show on the Rumble, and where everybody can reach you at, and the center and all that. We want to get it all out there.
Okay, so why don't we go ahead and do that right now? So I don't have everything memorized for the center, so I'll just use my Crystal Skull email that I have if people want to know more, and I can send them the link. Unless you have a way in the description, because I think I sent you these things.
Yes, I will put those links in the description when I edit the show. I'll put those links in the description for the show page.
Okay, so I'm going to recommend that people go look at the description of the show for the links on the center. But if they want to contact me like right away, my best email is crystalskullexplorers@gmail.com. Crystal Skull Explorers, plural, @gmail.com. And our Crystal Skull website is CSE, like Crystal Skull Explorers, CSE.crystalskullexplorers.com. Will take you to our website. And on our website, we do have a free ebook on crystal skulls that you can download, as well as the other books that we offer. And I have 5 other free ebooks too, like on Tartaria, Flat Earth, etc. So if you email me, I can let you know how to get access to these 6 free ebooks we have, or whichever ones you're interested in. Another thing that we've been helping people, which I'm hoping will be helping you, John, eventually at some point, is we have carvers in India and China who make crystal skulls for us. So we've been helping people to get their own crystal skull. And if they come here, Katrina has a gift, my wife Katrina, to activate the skull. So some people decide to have them activated by us or sit with our personal crystal skulls, which we have 30. So that's something. And then on Rumble, I have 3 video channels there, one for Crystal Skull, one for Flat Earth, and one for the Center for the Advancement of Humanity. So John will give you the link to the center and the Crystal Skull Rumble video channel, so you can watch that as well. So that's basically, what we have. And if there's any questions I can answer, or if you want to get on our mailing list, we have a mailing list too. So you can be updated when we have updates. That's also on our website, or I can explain to you how to sign up for that. So I want to thank you, John, for giving me this opportunity to talk about all these subjects. I hope it's been beneficial to your listeners. I think they're all very important with what's happening right now. But really, the key is to really start trusting more from a paranormal or spiritual perspective that aspect of ourselves. It's very, very important. I believe that all of us are individual pieces of creator, that everything that exists is a molecule or particle of God, and we're a part of that. And I think that um, this divine love that Creator has for all creation is coming to our earth, and she, I have to say, is very well aware of what's going on. And I think that the globalists, the elite, they've gone too far. There's, we haven't talked about it, but the more I hear about it, many horrific things that they've been involved in, that this cannot continue. So our world can have peace, and then we'll be part of the Galactic Federation again, and we'll be having many galactic visitors here that we can learn from and possibly go and visit their world. So it's going to be really amazing life that's ahead of us. That's all I can see.
That sounds
Hopefully,
amazing. It sounds
yeah,
amazing. I hope it all comes true, and definitely need world peace because it's definitely a little crazy out there right now. Something needs to change because right now it's not a good time in our history, and it's not getting better at this point. It needs to get better, but it isn't, and something really big needs to happen to change, and it's heading to
right.
it's heading to that. Hopefully,
Yes, definitely. Or I heard a message before I came on your show today, and that is truth always prevails. Divine truth always prevails. So this is actually what's happening right now. The truth is coming out about everything, both the light and the dark. And you have to know about the dark so you don't give your power away. But the truth always prevails, and that's what's happening right now. The truth is coming out, and I'm hopeful before the end of the year, these things I'm talking about, people will go, yeah, Joshua understood this and was trying to prepare us for this. And that's what I kind of feel like when I do these shows. I'm kind of like a messenger, not only to give hope, but to prepare people for what's coming. And that'll be a key service of our center, because I think a lot of people are going to be in shock when this truth comes out, and we'll be helping them to ease that shock and to explain things in a very loving and kind and gentle way, so that they can, integrate into the new heaven and earth, which is coming. I know this, it's coming. And at any moment in time, major stuff start coming out. Just, I think the key is we just all have to believe in it, even if we don't know the exact sequence of events that bring it. Just know it's going to happen. Feel it in yourself. Know it's going to happen. And that's a very simple thing to do. It's like riding a bicycle. You got to practice that, but eventually it becomes a part of you, and then you don't have to think about it. Just
exactly.
like when I moved to Holland, I hadn't ridden a bicycle for probably 30 or 40 years, and I got on and I started riding, and I start writing. you know. So
Yep.
it was still 30, 40 years later, was still in my subconscious mind how to do it.
Yep.
So
Then once you learn how to bike, you never forget how to ride it, right?
right.
It's the old
And that's why,
saying.
right. And that's why, there are people who are very wealthy. What do they tell you? The power of the mind. I have a positive mindset. I expect to have success. So all we need to do is expect we're going to have peace. Expect that we're going to do the things we love, that, you know, we won't have all this tension and pressure and challenges that we have now. We're going to have peace. Just expect. You don't need to know how. It's as simple as that. Because if it is the power of the mind, it's probably like Ken Keyes wrote about in The 100th Monkey. I think it was back in the 70s or early 80s. After a certain amount of monkeys on these islands in Japan understood how to clean their sweet potatoes, then all the monkeys on all the islands learned how to do it. So he was postulating in the book which individual will be the 100th monkey person that knows about peace, that flips the switch, and then we all understand about peace. So that's how powerful our thoughts and what we believe can be.
Oh, most definitely, most definitely.
And they have a scientific term for this phenomena. A race, when a certain number or members of a race gain a certain understanding, then all the people gain the understanding. I think that's going to happen possibly around the true nature of our world, which may parallel a little bit of flat Earth. But again, that's another subject for another time.
Well, Josh, I want to thank you for coming on the show tonight. It was a very interesting show, and I definitely want to have you back again, talking more about the crystal skulls and your center you're going to be building, and just more elaboration on more things, and give you some more time talking about all this stuff.
I'd be happy to do that, John. So again, thank you very much. Hope everybody's going to have a great day or great week whenever you listen to the show. And of course, feel free to contact us, and also to keep listening to the shows John's doing. He's doing a great job. He's coming up with great guests. So please support John and his podcast with us too as well.
Thank you,
Thank you
Joshua.
again, John.
Yes, sir. You have a
Well,
great rest of your week, and I'll be in contact with you again to have you on the show again.
okay, sounds good.
Thank
Thank
you,
you so
Joshua.
much.
Thank you.
Okay, bye.
Bye bye. Joshua Shapiro, ladies and gentlemen, that was Joshua Shapiro, the Crystal Skull Explorer. Great, great guy. Wow, that was a great show. Definitely was an interesting show, and definitely told me a lot about crystal skulls I didn't really know about. Didn't know about. Excuse me. Um, and I think a lot of things that he's talking about are ringing true with what's going on with the world today. This stuff with Ukraine and Russia and the United States. It's just it's a mess that the world really doesn't need right now. We already are experiencing so many different things of negativity in the world. Homelessness. I mean, these are things we should be worried about as humanity. People are homeless. People are starving. Uh, in every country, all over the world, this is happening. You have poverty, and we're sending millions and billions. The United States is sending billions of dollars to fight a war. We have people in our own country right now that are sleeping on the streets, literally 2 blocks from the White House, that are homeless, and we're sending billions of dollars to another country for war and destruction. And here's homeless veterans that are on the streets, sleeping on the streets, nowhere to live. And that's all over the world. And we're sending billions of dollars to fight war. This doesn't make any sense to me. It definitely, maybe somehow these crystal skulls can make a difference and, create a humanity that's peaceful instead of always wanting to fight and kill each other. And, it just doesn't make any sense. Even social media nowadays is really hostile. People are ready to tear each other apart over the stupidest little things, and it's quite ridiculous. At some point, I mean, I get on podcasting to show people these experiences of paranormal things that have happened to me over the years, and even UFO things that I've experienced. And I like getting guests on talking about this kind of stuff. It's totally interesting to me uh, to see, how people react to different things that I've experienced or other people have experienced. It makes me keep doing the podcast, and it makes I hope the listeners, that everyone out there that's listening to the show, is enjoying the content of the show. I don't, if you want to hear different things about, other paranormal things, I am going to get into different things, but I really like ghosts. That's what I've always been into, ghost, UFOs. But I'm into all kinds of things with paranormal. If you have anything that you want specific about the show, you want to do an episode on, that you want me to do an episode on, just contact through email, which is paranormaljournal18 at Comcast.net. That's Paranormal Journal 18 at Comcast.net. Send me an email. Say, hey, maybe can you talk about this on the show? Can you talk about that on the show? Can I come on the show? I would love to have you on the show. If you want to do an episode of you with your paranormal experiences, your Bigfoot experiences, UFO experiences, cryptids, skinwalkers, I will do an episode on anything relating supernatural things. I don't care. If you're listening and you want to come on the show talking about your paranormal experiences of any kind, supernatural, cryptid, UFOs, I don't care what it is, Bigfoot, send me an email, paranormaljournal18 at Comcast.net, and we'll do an episode. Well, folks, thank you for listening to the show tonight with the Crystal Skulls, and I hope you enjoy it. I hope you get some information about this stuff, and if you have any questions, definitely contact Joshua because he's a really intelligent guy, and he's been doing this a long time. He's been all over the world with the crystal skulls, with the studies of it. So definitely get in contact with him. Check out his center. Check out the Center for Humanity. I mean, it's a great thing. I think it's going to be a great thing, and God knows we need it. So thank you for tuning in tonight, folks. Keep listening to the podcast. Download, share, like it, love it. Email me. I don't care. Whatever you want to email me about, email it. And have a great rest of your week. Thanks, guys.
That will conclude our broadcast of the Paranormal Journal podcast. Have a great night.